A secret can sit inside a person for so long it starts to feel like a second spine. Kunti has carried hers through weddings and exile, through drums and garlands, through the hush that comes after too many funerals. And even now, in the dark, it still smells like river water on her hands. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You move through a palace that has forgotten how to celebrate. The corridors are long, washed in moonlight, and the stone under your feet holds the day's heat like an old grudge. Somewhere far off, a lamp sputters, ghee and smoke, a faint sweetness of sandalwood that is soaked into the walls. You pass a pair of guards at a doorway, trying their best to look alert. One of them loses the battle and snores softly, head tilted, mouth open. Royal service, very dignified. No one stops you. In this hour, everyone steps lightly around the rooms of widows and mothers. Everyone pretends not to hear the quiet sounds that live behind closed doors. A cough, a breath held too long, the soft click of prayer beads in restless fingers. You come to her chamber. The door is half latched, as if the room itself can't decide whether it wants company or not. Inside, the air is warm and still. Oil lamps have been turned low, but not extinguished. The flame makes the shadows sway, slow as dancers who have forgotten the music. Kunti lies awake, not sitting up like a queen in paintings, just an old woman under thin cloth, the kind of cotton that looks soft until you touch it and feel every thread. So much for royal luxury. Even the richest beds can feel like wooden planks when the mind refuses to lie down. You sit near the edge of the room where you can hear her breathing. In, out, a little catch like a wave meeting stones. Her hair is silver now, braided loosely, the way people braid hair when they've stopped expecting visitors. A faint smear of sandal paste lingers near her throat, and the scent rises whenever she shifts. Sandalwood and something else. Not quite grief. More like old grief, worn smooth. Outside, the palace sleeps unevenly. A peacock calls from some garden it has claimed as its own. Temple bells, very distant, marking time for gods who never need to count it. And beyond even that, softer than all of it, the river. You can't see it from here, but Kunti can hear it with her whole body. Even in a sealed room, even in a city of stone and duty, her mind keeps walking to water. It goes there the way a tongue returns to a broken tooth. She doesn't speak. Still, you feel the shape of what she's holding. Not a jewel, not a weapon, a memory that has weight, a name that was never allowed to be said. Her fingers move across a strand of beads. 1, 2, 3. The beads are smooth from decades of touch, polished by worry and prayer until they shine faintly in the lamplight. Her thumb pauses, and you can almost sense the moment when her thoughts turn, like a boat changing direction in a slow current. The river again. Not this city's river, not the public ghats where pilgrims descend with brass pots and bright faith. A smaller river, a quieter one, a ribbon of water that slips away and joins the great Ganga as if it's trying to disappear into something larger. Kunti's throat tightens. It's not pain exactly. It's the old familiar press of a choice that never stopped being a choice. A moment that keeps happening, no matter how many years stand in front of it like soldiers. Your eyes adjust to the dark. You notice what's gathered here. A small bowl of ash from incense burned down to nothing. A cloth folded with obsessive neatness. A brass cup of water untouched. The simple things people keep close when the world has taken the grand things away. And on a low stand, a single flower left in a dish. Not fresh, not bright, but placed carefully, as if devotion can still make beauty out of what's fading. Somewhere in the palace, someone laughs in their sleep. It's brief, sudden, and then gone. A reminder that even now, after counsels and vows and the long roar of war, some fool is still dreaming happily. Good for him, truly. Let him enjoy it while it lasts. Kunti shifts her head on the pillow. The pillow is stuffed with something that crackles faintly. Dry grass, maybe, or old cotton. She is a queen, and yet the room makes no effort to impress you. Once you've watched kingdoms rise and fall, furniture stops pretending it matters. Her eyes are open. In the dim light, they look darker than they once were. But there's still that steadiness, that habit of not flinching, the same gaze that held 5 suns together when everything else tried to pull them apart. And still, there is one sun who lives only in the place she doesn't point to. You feel it hovering near her like an unlit lamp, a first dawn, hidden, a terrace where the sky turned gold, a heat that wasn't weather. Her breath slows, and for a moment you think she might finally drift. Then the river returns. You can almost hear it now, even from this room. Water sliding past reeds, the soft slap against a bank, the hush of a current carrying secrets without ever asking permission. Kunti's hand lifts barely. Her palm turns upward, empty. The gesture is so small, so tired, and yet it feels like the beginning of something, like a door unbolting in the dark. Tonight, you stay with her. You stay in the quiet space between what is remembered and what is spoken. You stay while the lamps breathe and the shadows sway. And slowly, as the palace holds its breath, the years begin to loosen. First, the scent changes. Sandalwood fades, replaced by the sharp, clean smell of a younger place. Fresh plaster, sun-warmed stone, women's hair oiled with jasmine. You feel the shift like a change in wind, like walking from a cool corridor onto a terrace where dawn is waiting. Kunti's life begins to move backward. You'll be there in the palace of Kuntibhoja, where a restless girl learns how dangerous a favor can be. You'll feel the long, exhausting year of serving a sage whose temper is faster than lightning. You'll hear the mantra, 5 syllables, given as casually as a sweet. And then you'll stand at sunrise. You'll watch the sky go molten. You'll feel heat bloom in the air, thick and undeniable, as Surya himself answers. After that, there will be 9 months of hiding, a room kept secret, a newborn who arrives like a piece of the sun, and a basket waiting at the riverbank, as if woven for heartbreak. Years will pass like beads sliding through fingers, a marriage, a forest, a curse that turns desire into danger. 5 suns held close, one set loose on water, and later, in a great arena loud with conches and cheering, you'll see him again, grown tall, shining with armor that no human hand ever tied on. For now, though, you are in the old queen's chamber. The night holds steady. Her breathing softens, and the river, patient, endless, keeps flowing in the dark, carrying everything she never said. The sun is higher now, and your back already aches. Not the aching of age, not yet. This is the ache of being young in a palace where you're expected to glide like a swan all day. Your hair is oiled and braided. Your bangles are too shiny. Your veil keeps slipping at exactly the wrong moments. And still, restless, you're in Kuntibhoja's palace, in the women's quarters, where the walls are painted with lotus ponds and gentle deer. The floors are cool under your feet at dawn, then warm by midday, then cool again when the lamps are lit. Everything smells of jasmine and turmeric and the faint, sweet smoke of key wicks. You can hear the palace living around you, conch shells in the distance, a temple bell that never hurries, parrots scolding each other in the neem trees, the soft clap of laundry against stone somewhere near the well, and you, Pritha, the girl they now call Kunti, keep looking toward the gates as if something interesting might walk in. It does, not a prince with jeweled rings, not a merchant with gossip from the roads, a sage. Durvasa arrives like weather, like a hot wind that doesn't ask permission. You don't see him first. You feel the palace change. Servants stop laughing. Footsteps turn careful. Even the horses in the courtyard toss their heads as if they've caught a sharp scent. The air seems to tighten, like cloth pulled too hard. You're standing just behind a pillar when he's welcomed in, and you peek around it. Matted hair, dust on his feet, eyes bright and unreadable. He looks like he's been walking forever, and like he could keep walking through your walls if he felt like it. People have stories about him. Everyone has stories. You've heard them in half-whispered bursts, how he blesses like rain, and how his anger lands like lightning. You've heard that kings have lost their peace for a careless word in his hearing. You've heard that even the kitchen fires behave when he's nearby. Kuntibhoja receives him with honor, of course, a throne-like seat, a fresh cloth, water for washing. The best the palace can offer, offered quickly. And then the request comes, not politely. Durvasa makes it known that he will stay, not for a night, not for 3, for a year, a whole year inside the palace, eating its food, breathing its air, testing its patience like a thumb pressing into ripe fruit. You're young enough to feel a strange thrill, a sage in the palace, a force of nature under your roof. Part of you is curious, and part of you, quietly, sensibly, wants to hide behind a storage jar until the year is over. But it doesn't work that way. Soon, it's decided that you will attend him. Not the chief steward, not a line of servants who can rotate and rest. You, a girl from the inner chambers, quick-handed, sharp-eyed, and, most important, royal enough that serving him will be an honor, not an insult. You bow because everyone is watching, and because saying no feels like stepping under a falling stone. The first day teaches you the rules. Durvasa's appetite has no schedule. You bring him food at sunrise, thinking you've done well, and then he wants another meal before the sun has fully cleared the palace roof. He eats like a man who has forgotten comfort for years, and then complains that the rice is too soft, then too hard, then too hot, then somehow too cold. You learn the fastest way from the kitchen to his chamber. You learn which tiles squeak. You learn to carry brass plates without clatter, even when your arms shake. The smell of the kitchen clings to you. Smoke in your hair, cumin in your sleeves, warm ghee on your fingertips, no matter how often you wash. At night, your palms still feel the weight of heavy bowls, as if sleep itself is another errand. And the palace women, oh, they watch, some with pity, some with satisfaction, as if your trouble is a sort of entertainment provided by the gods. A year is a long time to be observed. Durvasa tests everything, not just the food, not just the service. He tests tone. He tests speed. He tests whether your face flinches when he frowns. One afternoon, when the heat sits on the palace like a hand, he suddenly wants water drawn from a particular well, not the nearest, not the coolest, a particular one, across the courtyard, past the sandalwood storehouse, where the stone steps are slick and the guards look confused about why a princess is jogging with a brass pot. You go anyway. Your feet slap the warm stone. Your bangles knock your wrist like impatient little reminders. By the time you return, your breath is loud in your ears. And Durvasa looks at the water, sniffs it like a suspicious cat, and makes it known it should have arrived sooner. You swallow your pride with the dry taste of fear, because you know what happens when he's displeased. You've heard the stories, a careless word, a wrong glance, and suddenly a blessing becomes something sharp, something that follows a family for years. So you become careful in ways you didn't know were possible. You begin to move like a shadow that carries trays. Days stack into weeks. Sometimes Durvasa is quiet, almost peaceful, sitting with closed eyes while the lamps flicker and the evening breeze pushes the curtains. Sometimes he is impossible. He demands sweets and then refuses sugar. He asks for milk and then insists it smell of the cowshed, as if proof it's real. He wants silence and then becomes irritated that the room is too silent, as if the very air is plotting against him. There are moments, small, ridiculous moments, when you have to hold back laughter just to survive. Once, he insists on being served in a certain order: water, then fruit, then rice, then vegetables. You follow it perfectly. Then he decides it should have been fruit, then water, then vegetables, then rice. And you realize you're serving a man whose mind changes faster than the flame on a ghee lamp in wind. You nod solemnly, as if this is the deepest wisdom in the world. Inside, you think, of course, naturally. Why would food behave like food? You learn to apologize without groveling, to bow without collapsing, to be humble without becoming nothing. Your body adapts in its own stubborn way. Your shoulders grow strong, your hands steady. You can carry hot bowls without flinching. You can wake before dawn at the smallest sound, an anklet in the corridor, a cough, the subtle shift of a sleeping palace. Monsoon comes, and the smell of rain on dust rises like a blessing. The courtyard turns slick and shining. Peacocks scream from the walls as if they've been personally insulted by the clouds. You run anyway. Your hems cling to your ankles. Your hair frizzes under the damp. You slip once, not fully falling, just enough that your heart tries to escape your ribs. You reach his chamber with a tray held level through pure will. Durvasa looks at you. He sees everything: the wet edge of your veil, the mud on your foot, the way you're forcing your breath to stay calm. He doesn't erupt, not then. He eats, and you stand there, listening to the rain drum the roof tiles, feeling the relief slide through you like cool water. That's how the year goes. Terror braided with discipline, exhaustion braided with pride. Because you are doing it. Day after day, you are doing it. The palace begins to treat you differently. Servants glance at you with a sort of awe, as if you've walked into a tiger's cage and come out with your head still attached. Even Kuntibhoja's gaze changes. There's approval there, and something else too. Relief, perhaps, that the storm is being managed. And you, in quiet moments, feel yourself sharpening. Not into cruelty, into steadiness. You feel it in your own shoulders. Power isn't always a sword. Sometimes it's keeping your face smooth when the room wants you to crack. Sometimes power is simply not losing your composure when everyone expects you to. The year finally thins toward its end. The nights grow cooler. The air smells of drying grass and smoke from cooking fires. The lamps burn a little longer in the evenings, their light making gold pools on the floor. Durvasa's presence, which once felt endless, begins to feel temporary. One morning you bring him his meal, and he eats in silence. No complaint, no sudden demand. Just the quiet sound of food and your own heartbeat settling. When he finishes, he looks at you for a long time. You can feel that gaze like a hand on your forehead. This is the moment your stomach drops because you don't know what kind of ending a man like Durvasa gives. A blessing that changes your life. A curse for some tiny mistake you never even noticed. You stand very still, your toes curl lightly against the cool stone floor, grounding you. Outside, you hear the palace waking, women laughing near the well, a cart creaking, a priest chanting somewhere in the distance. The smell of warm milk drifts in, mixed with incense from the shrine. Then Durvasa speaks, not with thunder, not with anger, with the casual tone of someone handing you a flower. He makes it known that you have pleased him, that your service, your patience, your steadiness have satisfied a man who is rarely satisfied by anything at all. And because of that, he will give you a gift, not jewelry, not land, something stranger, a mantra, 5 syllables. You feel your skin prickle even before you understand. Because mantras aren't toys, they are keys. He teaches it to you carefully, once, twice, until the sound sits perfectly in your mouth, like a new shape your tongue has learned. He tells you what it does. If you speak it with focus, with intention, it will summon a god. Not in a dream, not as a distant blessing. A god will come. The words hang in the air, heavier than smoke. You stare at him, and your mind scrambles to hold the idea. The women's quarters, with their gossip and bangles and veils, suddenly feel very small. The palace walls feel thinner. Durvasa watches you the way someone watches a child near a lit lamp. Not unkindly, simply watching. He adds a warning as calmly as he might mention the weather. That you must be careful. That a god who comes cannot be commanded like a servant. That gifts, once given, don't always return to the hand that offered them. And still, he places it in you. 5 syllables, a spark. He rises to leave. No grand farewell, no long ceremony, just the sense of a storm moving on, satisfied for now, leaving the air strangely clean behind it. You remain where you are, holding the empty tray, feeling the mantra echo in your chest. You're standing in the corridor when you realize your hands are trembling, not from fear alone, from possibility, from the strange, bright pride of being chosen for something dangerous. The palace feels the same painted walls, the same polished floors, the same jasmine in the air. But you don't feel the same inside it. You walk back toward the women's quarters as if you're carrying a bowl filled to the rim. Careful, careful, because now you know what you have. Not a secret yet, not a shame yet, just a handful of syllables, light as breath. And somewhere beyond the palace roof, the sun climbs, steady, golden, patient, waiting for the day you decide to test whether gods truly listen. You wait until everyone is asleep. The palace is quiet, except for the night birds, and you whisper the words, just to see. It starts as a small rebellion. You slip out of the women's quarters with your veil pulled low. Your bangles are muffled in your palm, so they won't betray you with their jingling. Even the lamps seem drowsy, their ghee-fed flames leaning to one side. Somewhere, a guard clears his throat, bored with protecting a sleeping world. The corridor stones are cool under your feet. Cool and a little gritty, like they always are, no matter how much anyone scrubs them. You pass sleeping doors, curtained archways, a fountain that has been turned off for the night, so its splashing won't wake the nobles. You can smell the courtyard jasmine. You can smell damp earth too, yesterday's watering still clinging to the roots. And above you, always above you, the palace roof waits. The stair up to the terrace creaks on the third step. Of course it does. It's the one step that always complains, like an old aunt who thinks you're going to ruin your life and wants the whole household to hear about it. You pause. You listen. Only the soft wing beats of night birds. Only the distant snore of a palace guard who will swear tomorrow that he remained perfectly alert all night. So you go on. At the top, the terrace opens around you, wide and empty and washed in moonlight. The stone is pale, almost silver. A few clay pots hold tulsi plants, their leaves dark and glossy, trembling in a light breeze. The sky is not yet dawn, but it has begun to loosen, as if someone is slowly untying a knot. And you stand there, alone. This is the moment. You can feel it in your throat, like the start of laughter, like the start of tears. Your heart beats too loudly for such a quiet place. The mantra Durvasa gave you sits inside your mouth like a stolen sweet. 5 syllables, small enough to hide, sharp enough to cut you. You look east, far beyond the palace walls. The horizon is a dark line. Above it, the faintest paling has begun, an invisible hand rubbing away the night. The wind is cooler here, and it brings the smell of distant cooking fires being coaxed awake in the servants' quarters. You tell yourself you're only curious, and you almost laugh at yourself because curiosity has a way of walking into rooms it cannot leave. The syllables rise. They don't feel grand. They don't feel like a thunderbolt. They feel like a child's dare whispered into the dark. You speak them anyway. For a breath, nothing changes. You hear your own voice fade into the open air. You hear the far-off hoot of an owl that sounds annoyed at being disturbed. You feel the terrace stone under your toes and think absurdly that you should have brought a shawl. Then the light shifts, not brighter exactly, different. The air thickens as if the terrace has suddenly been draped in unseen cloth. The breeze dies. The coolness lifts away from your skin like a blanket being pulled off in the middle of the night. Heat arrives without footsteps. It presses against your cheeks. It crawls over your arms. It fills your lungs until breathing feels like drinking warm water. The eastern sky brightens too quickly. The pale band at the horizon turns gold, not gentle gold, a gold like molten metal. And you, standing there with your veil and your daring, realize the mantra was not a game. A sound rolls in, low and steady, not thunder, not wind, more like wheels on stone, like a chariot passing over the sky itself. The terrace seems to glow, the pale slabs of stone holding light inside them as if they've been hungry for it. Your mouth goes dry. You take one step back and bump into a pillar. The stone is suddenly warm against your spine. Warm in a way stone should never be. And then he is there, not walking in, not climbing up. There, Surya stands before you as if he has always belonged on this terrace, as if the palace was built only so he could visit it. He is brightness shaped into a man, golden skin, golden eyes, a radiance that makes you want to look away and look closer at the same time. The jewels on him, armlets, earrings, a crown, catch and throw light in sharp little flashes. Even his hair seems to hold sunrise inside it. Behind him, for one dizzy moment, you think you see the outline of a chariot, high and gleaming, and the suggestion of restless horses made of pure mourning. Then it's only him again, filling the terrace, filling the air, filling your life. You're standing in front of the sun himself, and your knees decide this is an excellent time to forget how to work. Surya looks at you with something like amusement, not cruel amusement, the kind a powerful person has when they see how small your bravery is compared to what you've summoned. His presence makes everything else feel thin. Your veil, your jewelry, your name, your father's palace, all of it. You try to gather yourself. You try to remember you're a princess of Kuntibhoja, not a frightened child on a roof. But your voice comes out unsteady anyway. You manage to convey the truth in broken pieces. You were given a mantra. You wanted to know if it worked. You didn't think anyone would actually come. You say it in the only way you can. Half apology, half terror, half stubborn pride. Surya listens, patient as the sunrise he brings. He doesn't look offended. He doesn't look hurried. He tells you, calmly, that sacred words are not toys. A god who is summoned must answer, and a gift once awakened cannot always be pushed back into sleep. You feel heat climbing into your face, hot enough to make your eyes sting. You try to explain again. No, that isn't what you meant. You didn't intend anything. You only... Surya's expression softens, just slightly. And that softness is somehow more frightening than anger. He tells you he has come because you called him. He tells you you cannot call the sun and expect him to pretend he didn't hear. You clutch the edge of your veil like it can anchor you to the world you know. You think of the women's quarters below, full of sleeping girls who have no idea what is standing above their heads. You think of your adoptive father's face and how quickly affection can turn to fury when honor is threatened. Your mind races for a way out. You beg him, in the only language you have, to leave, to forgive your foolishness, to take the mantra back the way Durvasa gave it, to make this nothing. Surya's gaze holds you the way sunlight holds leaf. No room for shadow. He tells you gently that some things do not return to the hand that offered them. He tells you the gods do not come like servants, and they do not leave like embarrassed guests. You feel your chest tighten. You feel the terrace spinning slightly, as if the palace itself has tilted toward the horizon. And because you are still young, because you are still you reach for the only weapon you have left. You remind him, desperately, that you are a maiden, unmarried, a princess whose life is watched and measured and judged by people who will never see this terrace, never hear this mantra, never understand anything except what can be whispered in a corridor. You tell him you will be ruined. Surya looks at you for a long moment, and the air around you hums, soft, steady, like a temple bell that never stops ringing. Then he offers something that sounds, for an instant, like mercy. He tells you he will not leave you destroyed. He tells you he can restore what the world will call your maidenhood, even after this night has passed. He can cover you with his protection, so no one will know by looking. It's meant to comfort you. It does not, because comfort is not the same as escape, because no one will know is not the same as nothing will happen. You stand there on the terrace, and you understand something cold and clear. The sun has risen in front of you, and you cannot ask it to set. Below, somewhere deep in the palace, a man laughs in his sleep. A woman turns over, her anklets clinking softly. A dog barks once and then goes quiet again. Ordinary sounds, a world pretending it is safe. You're still there. You can smell hot stone now, heated as if by noon. You can taste fear, metallic on your tongue. Surya steps closer, not aggressively, not with the roughness of a man who wants to frighten, with inevitability. You squeeze your eyes shut, and for a heartbeat, you see only orange and gold behind your eyelids, as if the sun is inside your skull. Your hands lift without you meaning them to, palms half raised, a useless gesture. What do you do when the sky itself comes within arm's reach? You feel the night break apart. Time changes shape. The hours don't move the way they usually do. They stretch and fold and slide. The stars outside, what remains of them, seem to hold their breath. You do not have words for what happens next. Not words that fit in a palace. Not words that would be allowed in a princess's mouth. There is only presence, only brightness, only the strange sense of being seen entirely, down to the smallest secret thought. You are frightened, you are furious, you are overwhelmed by a force that will not bargain. And still, somewhere inside the fear, there is awe, pure and unwanted, because part of you understands you have called something vast, and it has answered. The terrace becomes a chamber made of light. Heat wraps around you like silk drawn too tight. The stone beneath your feet is almost hot enough to sting, and yet your skin prickles with goose flesh. Surya remains near, and the night passes under his gaze. At some point, you stop trying to fight the inevitable with your breath. At some point, exhaustion takes you by the hand. Your thoughts blur. The palace below sleeps on, faithful and ignorant. And you, princess, girl, servant of an old sage's gift, are carried through an experience you will never be able to explain to anyone without losing everything. When the eastern sky begins to pale again, it is not the gentle, ordinary dawn you have known your whole life. It is dawn sharpened into a blade. The first line of sunrise appears, and the terrace answers it, glowing faintly as if remembering Surya's touch. A bird calls out, confused, as though it has woken in the middle of a dream. You are still there. Your veil lies loosened. Your hair has slipped free of its careful ties. Your bangles are cold again, suddenly heavy on your wrists, like they belong to a different person. Surya stands at the edge of the terrace now, looking out toward the waking world. He seems satisfied, not smug, simply settled, as if a promise has been fulfilled. You gather yourself around you in pieces. You pull your veil back into place with trembling fingers. You swallow against the dryness in your throat. Surya turns his gaze to you one last time. He reminds you, in that steady way of his, that no one will see ruin on your face, that the world will not be able to accuse you by looking, that you will remain outwardly untouched. And he leaves you with something else too. A weight you can't name yet. A warmth low in your belly that feels like a coal hidden under ash. A sense that something has been planted in you, quiet and unstoppable. You watch him fade, not like a man walking away, but like light withdrawing from a room when a door is closed. For a moment, the air cools so suddenly you shiver. The breeze returns, tentative as a child. The terrace is empty again. Only stone, only tulsi leaves, only the ordinary sky turning pink and gold as if nothing extraordinary has happened. You're standing there with the sunrise in front of you, and you can hear the palace waking. A conch shell blows somewhere in the distance, long and low. Servants begin to move in the courtyards. A maid laughs, then hushes herself, remembering she is supposed to be quiet near sleeping nobles. Life resumes, and this is the moment, you feel yourself split from the girl you were yesterday. You go to the terrace railing and grip it hard. The stone is cool now, cool enough to steady you. Below, the world is so normal, it feels like a lie. You breathe in the smell of morning, fresh cow dung cakes being lit for cooking fires, wet leaves, a faint trace of sandalwood from last night's lamps. You breathe out slowly. No one knows, no one can tell, and still you can. By the time you turn toward the stairs, the sun has fully cleared the horizon. It rises, steady and golden and innocent, like it always does, like it did nothing at all. You start down into the palace, your steps careful on that creaking third stair. Your bangles are quiet in your fist. Your veil is fixed. Your face is calm enough to fool anyone. But inside you, something bright has taken root. By morning, you are no longer only a girl with a mantra. You are a girl carrying a secret vast as the sky. The pregnancy couldn't be hidden forever, but somehow you hide it anyway. At first it's almost laughable, because you tell yourself it's only a softness, only a heaviness after meals, only the summer heat making everyone sluggish. Then the weeks begin to stack like clay pots in a row, and your body stops pretending. In the women's quarters, life is made of small routines that catch everything. Bath days, oiling days, festivals, the older aunties who can judge a fever by the shine of your eyes. You learn to move like a shadow. You wear looser cotton, the kind that falls from shoulder to hip like a curtain. You keep your veil just a little lower. You sit cross-legged with a cushion placed accidentally in your lap. And you laugh more than usual, which is a mistake because people notice when you laugh too much. The air in the palace is always warm, even before noon. It smells of turmeric paste, damp stone, and ghee lamps that never quite go out. Somewhere, a parrot shrieks the same 3 notes, like it's gossiping to itself. You can feel your secret in every breath, and you begin to count time by strange things. By the way the jasmine opens earlier each week. By the way the kitchen women start grumbling about mangoes being too ripe too soon. By the way your bangles slip less easily over your wrist, because your hands are swelling, just a little. You're walking through the corridor one morning when you catch your reflection in a bronze water pot. It isn't the face that frightens you. It's the way your posture has changed. Protective, guarded, like you're already holding someone. You keep moving because in a palace, stopping is how you get questioned. The first person who truly sees you is not a queen, not a nurse, not an aunt. It's a maidservant with quick hands and quiet eyes. She's the one who brings you water at odd hours. The one who doesn't linger, doesn't stare. The one who notices the extra salt you crave and pretends it's nothing. One night, when the corridors are hushed and only the distant clink of a watchman's staff echoes through the courtyard, She comes to your sleeping mat. She doesn't ask foolish questions. She simply presses a folded cloth into your palm, soft cotton, stitched into a band meant to wrap your middle. And then she nods once, as if sealing a vow. You almost weep from the relief of being helped without being exposed. From then on, you are not alone. Months pass and your world becomes smaller without anyone realizing. You stop running with the other girls in the inner courtyard. You claim headaches when the music starts. You avoid the bathing pool on days when the older women insist on scrubbing everyone with scented oils like they're polishing brass. You become the girl who is suddenly very devout, always at the small shrine, always offering flowers, always fasting, which is a clever excuse because no one argues with fasting. Your stomach, meanwhile, argues constantly. You discover the unfairness of cravings. You want tamarind so sour it makes your mouth pinch. You want rice with ghee at midnight. Once, you want a lump of jaggery so badly you could steal it from the kitchen like a small, desperate monkey. And when you do steal it, because you are still human, you nearly choke laughing at yourself, sticky sweetness on your fingers, thinking, so this is what divinity does. It makes you a thief in your own palace. You sleep strangely. Some nights you sleep too deep, as if you've been pushed into the earth. Other nights you wake with your heart racing, certain someone is outside your door, certain the entire palace can hear your breathing. The monsoon comes, rain drums the roof tiles and rushes through the spouts shaped like lion mouths. The courtyard turns dark with wet stone. The scent of the world changes. River mud, crushed neem leaves, the sharp, clean smell of water meeting dust. You stand near a window and watch rain thread down like silver string. And you whisper inside yourself, not to anyone, not even to the God who began this, just to the storm, please, keep covering me. You begin to feel the child move. At first it's like a fish turning in a pond. Later it's unmistakable. Little pushes, little rolls, as if someone inside you is testing the walls of his universe. You press your palm there, and the maidservant sees the gesture and looks away politely, as if this is any ordinary thing. But you are not fooled. You remember the sunrise on the terrace. You remember the heat that didn't belong to the morning. And now you carry that heat beneath your ribs. By the 8th month, the hiding becomes its own kind of performance. You walk with a water pot balanced on your hip because it forces your arms to cover your belly. You sit behind pillars during gatherings, letting carved stone do the work of a curtain. You cough at strategic moments so people focus on your throat, not your shape. You learn the palace's blind spots. Every home has them. A corner where lamps don't reach, a storage room where old festival decorations are piled like sleeping animals, a narrow stair that creaks on the 3rd step, so you never use it anymore. At night, when everyone sleeps and the palace finally stops, pretending it isn't full of listening ears, you lie on your side and stare into the dark. The maidservant sleeps outside your door. Sometimes you hear her shift and sigh. Sometimes you hear a gecko click from the ceiling, like it's counting your breaths. And sometimes, rarely, you feel calm. Not happiness, just calm. Because the child moves, and whatever terror the world has stored for you, this small life doesn't know it yet. You're standing in the women's courtyard one afternoon when an older lady, one of those women who can smell trouble the way dogs smell fear, starts toward you with a narrowed gaze. You can feel it. The moment before questions, your maidservant appears like magic, bowing low, announcing that Kuntibhoja's sister needs you in her chamber immediately. Something about a missing necklace, something urgent, something only you can help with. The older lady frowns because she wants to be the center of urgency, not a witness to it. And you glide away with your heart hammering, thinking, "Bless you, quick-tongued savior." Later, behind closed doors, you press your forehead to the cool plaster wall and breathe until your ribs stop shaking. This is what your days are now, not living, avoiding. Then, one evening, the air turns heavy and still. No rain, no breeze. The lamps burn steadily, their flames tall and quiet, as if they're listening. You are eating a few bites of rice when pain tightens your belly like a sudden knot in rope. You freeze. Another wave comes, and you know, immediately, with a clarity that feels like cold water, this is not a small discomfort. This is the door opening. You set the food aside with trembling hands. Your maidservant looks at you once, and her face changes. She doesn't panic. She doesn't chatter. She moves. She slips out, returns with folded cloth, warm water in a pot, and a small oil lamp shielded in her palms. She guides you through corridors that smell of sleeping incense and damp stone, away from the women's rooms, away from the central courtyards. There is a little chamber near the back of the palace, one of those forgotten rooms used for storing broken jars and extra bedding. The walls are bare, the floor is cool. A single high window lets in a faint slice of moonlight. You're lowered onto folded blankets, and for a moment, you can't help the absurd thought. So this is it. The grand palace of Kuntibhoja, and you're giving birth beside old mattresses. It would almost be funny if it weren't your life. The pains come and go like waves, building, breaking, building again. Your mouth goes dry, sweat gathers at your hairline. The maidservant wipes your face with a damp cloth that smells faintly of neem. She presses warm water into your hands between waves. She murmurs prayers under her breath without making a show of it. Outside the small window, the palace is quiet. Somewhere far off, a dog barks once, then stops. You focus on the lamp. Its flame trembles, then steadies. Trembles, then steadies. Time loses its edges. There is only breath, only the tightening, only the slow, unstoppable pulling of one world into another. And then, finally, there is a release. A new sound fills the room, thin, insistent, alive, a baby's cry, bright as a bell. You turn your head, shaking, and the maidservant places him near you, wrapped quickly in cloth. For a heartbeat, you don't understand what you're seeing. Because the child is not merely beautiful, he's glowing, not like a lamp, not like fire, like sunlight caught in skin. Even in the dim room, even with the oil lamp low, he seems to carry his own morning. And then you see it clearly. Your breath catches hard. Golden armor, not strapped, not tied, not placed there by human hands, fused to him as if he was born wearing protection, the way other children are born wearing nothing at all. And at his tiny ears, earrings shining softly as if the ornaments grew with him. You lift a trembling finger and hover it near the armor, afraid to touch, afraid it will burn you, afraid it will vanish. It doesn't vanish. It is real. Your child lies there, eyes closed, mouth opening and closing as he cries, his little fists tightening like he's already arguing with the world. You can smell him. Warm, milk sweetness, clean skin, the faint oil scent of the cloth. You can hear your own breath, ragged, disbelieving. This is the moment. You are looking at proof. Proof that the sun did not leave you only with shame. He left you with a son who looks like dawn. Your arms ache to hold him properly, to pull him into your chest, and never let any wind touch him. And at the same time, fear rises so fast, it makes you dizzy. Because you know what happens to unmarried girls who give birth in palaces. You know how quickly compassion becomes disgust. You know how tongues sharpen when they smell scandal. You know the men who would punish you to make an example. You know the women who would whisper, then whisper louder. And you know, deep in your bones, that no one will believe the truth if you speak it. A god visited you. A god took what he wanted. A god gave you a child. In a palace full of ordinary people, that truth will sound like madness, or worse, an excuse. Your maidservant watches your face and understands the storm without needing it spoken. She brings the baby closer. She helps you nurse him in silence, her hands steady, her eyes lowered. The baby latches, and a strange calm spreads through you, slow as warm ghee poured over rice. Your body knows what to do, even if your mind is breaking apart. He feeds, he sighs. For a small moment, his crying stops. His eyelids flutter, and you see a glimpse of his eyes, dark and bright, like a deep well reflecting the sun. You feel love rise up, fierce and sudden, and you feel grief right behind it, already dressed and waiting, because you understand the choice forming in the dark like a shadow. Keep him and be exposed. Lose everything. Bring shame crashing onto the household that raised you. Watch your child become a weapon in other people's hands, or let him go. Save yourself and tear your own heart open so wide you'll never fully stitch it shut again. The room smells of lamp smoke and wet cloth and the sharp edge of fear. Outside, the palace sleeps. No drums, no conch shells, no grand announcements. Just the quiet breathing of a world that has no idea you're changing its fate. Near dawn, when the sky pales to the color of ash and the birds begin their first soft calls, the maidservant returns with a basket. It's sturdy, woven tight, the kind used for carrying fruits or flowers to temple offerings. She has lined it with soft cloth, old sari fabric, faded but clean. She doesn't say much. There is nothing to say that won't slice you. You look at the basket and feel the floor tilt beneath you. A basket, as if your son is something that can be placed down, carried away, delivered, as if this is ordinary. But nothing about this child is ordinary. You wrap him yourself. Your fingers fumble with the cloth because your hands are shaking, because your arms want to do the opposite of what your mind commands. He squirms, making small sounds, and the gold at his ears catches the new light. You press your lips to his forehead before you can stop yourself. He smells like life beginning. You hold him longer than you should. The maidservant waits, patient as stone. Finally, you place him in the basket. Your hands hover a moment after, as if your skin refuses to admit it has let go. The maidservant covers him carefully, leaving space for air, leaving room for his small face. Then she takes your elbow, and the two of you move. You're a shadow again, a quiet figure wrapped in a veil, walking with a servant through the waking edges of the palace. The corridors smell different now. Morning smoke, boiled milk, fresh cow dung cakes lit for the first cooking fires. A sleepy guard at a far gate yawns and looks away. No one expects royal women to be out this early. No one expects secrets to be carried in baskets. You pass out beyond the palace walls. The world outside is cool in that brief hour before the sun climbs. The earth is damp. The grass brushes your ankles, wet with dew. And ahead, there it is, the river. It moves with that steady sound that has always made you feel both comforted and afraid. Water sliding over water, a soft, endless hush. You're standing on the bank now, and the mud is cool beneath your feet. The air smells of riverweed and wet stone and distant wood smoke from village fires. Birds skim low over the surface. The water reflects the brightening sky in broken pieces. Your maidservant sets the basket down gently. You kneel beside it. Your body feels hollow, as if the world has taken something and left an echo behind. Inside the basket, the baby stirs. A small sound escapes him. Not a cry yet, just a questioning little breath. You lift the cloth slightly and look at him one last time. His cheeks are round. His mouth makes a small O, as if he's searching for you, even in sleep. The armor glows softly, as if the river itself is catching light and offering it back. You want to memorize everything: the curve of his ear, the tiny crease at his wrist, the weight of his presence, even now, even wrapped, even about to be carried away. Your throat tightens so hard it hurts. You lean close, so close, your breath warms his face, and you whisper the only thing that feels true: "Forgive me." The word barely leaves your lips before it dissolves into the river air. Your maidservant ties a rope to the basket, careful and firm. She lowers it to the water's edge. You hold the rope for a moment, feeling the rough fiber bite into your palm. This is the last tether. This is the last argument you can make with fate. The basket touches the water, and it rocks gently. Your child makes a small noise, soft, protesting. The river accepts him the way rivers accept everything. Without judgment, without pause. You keep your hand on the rope. Your arms tremble. Your breath comes shallow. You could pull him back. You could run. You could scream and shatter the morning. But then you see, in your mind, the palace walls, the whispering women, the hard faces, the hands that would seize the basket and call it justice. And you understand that this river, at least, has a chance of mercy. Your fingers loosen. One by one, the rope slips free, the basket drifts. At first it stays near the bank, circling as if unsure. Then the current catches it, gentle but certain, and draws it outward. You stand slowly because your knees can't bear you anymore. You watch the basket float past reeds that bend and rise again, past a half-submerged branch where a kingfisher sits like a blue jewel, past a swirl of water that turns it once, twice, like the river is testing its balance. It moves farther, smaller, a small dark shape under a widening sky. You are standing there with damp earth under your feet and sunrise on your face, and you feel the strangest thing. The sun is rising again, as if nothing extraordinary has happened, as if it did nothing at all. The basket becomes a speck. Then it becomes only an idea. Then even the idea is swallowed by distance and glare and water. You keep staring at the place it vanished, as if your eyes can pull it back. But the river does not return what it takes. It carries. It keeps moving. And you, still a stone on the bank, listen to the hush of the current. Listen until your maidservant touches your elbow softly, not urging, not scolding, just reminding you that your feet still belong to the earth. You turn away at last. The river keeps going, and somewhere on its wide, patient back, a basket rides the morning. You never spoke of it, not once. Days keep arriving anyway, rude and ordinary, with their clatter of bangles and trays and footsteps in hallways. You wash your face, you braid your hair, you swallow your grief like a bitter herb and learn to smile on command. And in the courtyard of your father's palace, the world goes on arranging itself around you. The first time you hear the word Swayamvara, it lands like a stone in a pond, a choosing, a public choosing, as if your heart is something you can lift in two hands and offer, garland ready, to whichever man the court finds acceptable. The women begin fussing immediately, silks aired out in the sun, hair oiled until it shines, anklets tested on the floor to hear which pair sings the sweetest. You can smell it all: sandalwood paste, jasmine buds bruised between fingers, warm milk simmering with cardamom. Outside, conches practice their long calls, and somewhere a drummer tries the same rhythm again and again until it becomes part of your bones. You walk through the palace as if you're calm, but inside you, always, there's that river. Always, there's the memory of wet ropes sliding through your hands. When the day comes, the assembly hall swells with men in bright cloth and brighter pride. Chariots crowd the outer yard like impatient horses. Gold flashes at throats. Armor glints in lamplight. And you, yes, you, sit where everyone can see you, as if you're not a person at all, but a prize set gently on a cushion. The air is thick with perfume and heat. Even the marble floor seems warm, as if it has been holding the day's sun in its belly. One prince after another offers strength and lineage, and you can feel each gaze like a fingertip pressing at your skin. Then Pandu steps forward. He isn't the loudest. He doesn't need to be. There's a steadiness to him, a quiet confidence that doesn't scramble for attention. It's almost a relief. You raise the garland. Your arms don't shake. Not outwardly. Inside, something in you flinches anyway, because you know what it means to be chosen by a god. And still, you choose this man. You place the flowers around his neck. The garland is cool at first, then quickly warm from his breath. A cheer rises like a wave, and you're carried along with it, whether you want to be or not. Marriage arrives in a blur of rituals. Key lamps flicker in long rows, their flames bending in the drafts from swinging curtains. Rice grains scatter underfoot and crackle softly when someone steps on them. Priests chant until the words feel woven into the air itself. You circle the sacred fire, and the heat licks at your ankles. There is turmeric on your skin, heavy and yellow, and your wrists ache from the weight of new bangles. Somewhere in the middle of it all, you almost laugh. Not because it's funny, but because the world loves ceremony. The world will wrap even the sharpest turn of fate in silk and flowers and call it auspicious. Hastinapura becomes your home. It is wide and loud and full of echoing corridors. Peacocks wander the gardens like they own them, scolding servants and nobles alike. At dusk, the palace smells of lamp smoke and rose water. At dawn, it smells of damp stone and milk boiling over because someone looked away for 2 seconds. You learn the rhythm of court life, the way news moves faster than feet, the way a smile can be a shield, the way a woman can hear everything and still be expected to say nothing. And through it all, you keep your mouth closed around your oldest truth. Your body remembers before your mind does. A flinch when sunlight hits a certain angle. A tightness in your chest when someone mentions Surya in a hymn. A strange, sharp tenderness when you see a newborn carried through the women's quarters. You're standing by a window one evening, watching the city settle into night. Oil lamps appear one by one in the lanes below, like a field of grounded stars. And for a heartbeat, you imagine a basket with one tiny lamp inside it, floating somewhere far away. Then you blink, and you're only looking at a street, only looking at ordinary light. Pandu is made king. The court celebrates. There are feasts that last too long, plates that return to the kitchen still heaped, musicians whose fingers must cramp and still they play. You sit beside your husband, draped in finery, your hair braided and pinned and heavy. You look like a queen. You feel like a locked room. And then, as if the world tires of letting anyone settle, the forest calls. It happens on a hunt, a day bright enough to make every leaf look newly washed. The air smells of crushed grass and horse sweat. The men ride out laughing, arrows in their quivers, minds full of sport. Then Pandu returns, changed, not wounded, not broken in any way you can point to, just shadowed, as if a cold wind has found its way under his skin. A curse has been spoken, a line has been crossed that cannot be uncrossed, and suddenly the palace, so grand, so crowded, feels like a place you can't breathe. Pandu chooses exile in the forest, not as punishment from anyone else, as a decision, a retreat, a way to live without tempting fate. You pack without knowing what to pack for. What do you take from a palace to a life of bark and firewood? Silks feel ridiculous in your hands. Jewels feel like tiny, useless suns. In the end, you carry what you can carry: cloth, grains, a few vessels, and the quiet skills women always end up needing. The road out of Hastinapura is dusty and long. Wheels groan, oxen snort, servants whisper as if speaking too loudly might crack the sky. You sit under a canopy that does little against the heat, and you watch the city fade behind you. You're leaving marble and courtyards for trees and mud and insects. And somewhere inside your ribs, your secret shifts, like it's settling in for a longer stay. The forest does not greet you politely. It simply exists, green after green after green. The air is wet in the mornings, cool enough to raise goose flesh on your arms. By midday, it turns heavy and hot, and sweat collects at the base of your throat. You learn the smell of river mud and crushed leaves. You learn the sound of your own breath at night, louder than you remember, because there are no palace walls to swallow it. Hermitages appear like quiet islands, simple huts, smoke rising straight up, deer watching without fear. Pandu tries to live like an ascetic king. Some days he succeeds. Some days you can see the ache of it in his posture, the old habits of command and comfort tugging at him like impatient children. Madri, his second wife, adapts with a grace that sometimes makes you love her and envy her in the same breath. She laughs more easily. She doesn't carry what you carry. You do not resent her for it. You only feel the weight of your own silence more clearly beside her lightness. Seasons turn. Monsoon rain arrives like a drumming army. You wake to water hammering leaves, to the sharp, clean smell of earth being washed. Everything becomes slick. Stones, paths, your own hair. Your clothes cling, and then dry, and then cling again. The forest swells and sings. Insects chant all night, tireless as priests. And then one evening, when the rain has stopped and the world is steaming softly, Pandu speaks to you with careful tenderness. He is thinking of lineage. He is thinking of duty. He is thinking of the throne left behind, waiting like an empty seat that will not stay empty forever. He reminds you, gently, of the boon you were given long ago. That mantra, those 5 syllables that can pull a god down into your life as easily as drawing water from a well. You feel it instantly, that old cold rush. You can almost taste the terrace air from your girlhood, the first daring whisper to the sunrise. You can almost feel again the shock of heat, the way your world split open. And now your husband is asking you to do it again, deliberately, on purpose, not as a frightened girl testing a gift, as a queen fulfilling a need. You sit very still. You watch a ghee lamp tremble in the draught. You smell smoke and wet wood, and you feel the cruel neatness of it. The same power that shattered your youth is being offered as salvation. You do not tell him about the river. You say nothing about the basket. Your secret stays where it has always stayed, behind your teeth. You nod. And when the night is quiet enough, when even the birds have tucked their heads under their wings, you go to a place a little apart. You can feel the ground cool under your feet, damp earth, soft moss. The sky above is huge, crowded with stars that don't care about kings. You close your eyes. You let the mantra rise in you like a remembered melody. Your mouth forms the syllables, and the air changes. It always changes, not loudly, not with thunder, more like the world takes a single sharp breath. Dharma arrives first, not in armor, not with flashing spectacle, with a presence that is calm, heavy, inevitable. The night feels steadier around him, like a pillar has been placed in the dark. You don't reach for drama, you don't plead. You do what you have to do because the path has narrowed to this one line. When it is over, you sit alone for a long time, hands resting in your lap, listening to the forest resume itself. A cricket begins again. Somewhere, a small owl calls. The ordinary world returning as if nothing happened. Months pass, measured in cravings and fatigue, in the way your body becomes its own secret chamber. And when your son is born, the hermitage fills with new sounds, soft coos, the hush of women moving carefully, Pandu's voice lowered in wonder. You hold the child against your chest. His skin is warm. His tiny fingers curl around yours with surprising strength. He is Yudhishthira. He looks up at you with a steadiness that makes your throat tighten. You press your forehead to his. The smell of him is milk and oil and something sweet, like new rice. You tell yourself fiercely that this one will stay. This one will not float away on any river. The years don't stop. They never do. Pandu looks at you again, later, with that same careful need. A second son, he says, without saying it. A second pillar. You feel the old dread stir and you push it down, because you have learned how. You call Vayu, the wind, and the night becomes restless. Leaves tremble, though there is no breeze. The air tastes sharp, like rain about to fall. When Bhima arrives in your life, he arrives like a storm given a baby shape. Even as an infant, he feels solid, heavy, hungry. He cries like he intends to be heard by the entire forest. You can't help it, half exhausted, half delighted. You smile, because if fate is going to send you hardship, at least it has sent it with lungs. Bhima grows fast, so fast it becomes a joke among the hermits. One day you set him down, and the next day he seems to have doubled, as if he's been eating hidden handfuls of sunlight. You watch him toddle, then run, then wrestle with other children like a little lion cub practicing royalty. His laughter booms. Birds startle from branches. Even Pandu, weighed down by vows and regrets, finds himself laughing sometimes. Then comes the third request. By now you can feel the pattern of your life as clearly as the lines in your palm. You know how it goes. The hush, the mantra, the air turning strange. This time you call Indra. The sky seems to lean closer. The scent of ozone pricks your nose, as if lightning has passed nearby, even though the heavens stay clear. Arjuna is born with eyes that seem to watch everything. He is quieter than Bhima, sharper. He grips your finger and holds it like a promise. When you lift him, he settles against you as if he belongs there, as if he has always known the shape of your arms. You look down at him and feel something unexpected. Fear, not of him, of what he will become, because you have seen what gods can do when they place their fire in human hands. And still, you kiss his forehead. You breathe in his warm, milky scent. You tell yourself again, like a prayer you can't stop repeating, that this one will stay. Madri watches all of this with her own quiet longing. She is a queen too, a wife too, and she carries her own ache, made sharper by the fact that she did not come into this marriage first. One evening, when the forest is gold with late sunlight and the river nearby is low and slow, she asks you, softly, carefully, to share your mantra with her. You hesitate, not because you don't love her, because you do, but because the mantra feels like a blade you've learned to hold by the safe edge. Passing it to someone else feels like handing over fire. Still, you agree. You teach her the syllables. You watch her mouth shape them, trembling with hope. And you sit beside her when the Ashvins come, twin presences, light as breath, quick as the blink of an eye. Nakula and Sahadeva arrive into the world like paired blessings. They are beautiful children, calm and bright. When you place them together, their heads almost touch, like they were always meant to be, side by side. Now there are 5 boys in the hermitage, 5 small lives, 5 sets of footsteps, 5 different ways of laughing. The forest is no longer quiet. It is full of wrestling and running, full of shouted games and the thump of fruit dropping from trees because someone shook the wrong branch too hard. You cook in big pots now. You mend endlessly. You clean endlessly. You sit with scraped knees and tangled hair and insects that seem determined to taste every sweet thing you make. And you love them. You love them so fiercely it surprises you. There are moments, rare, soft moments, when you almost feel like you could be forgiven by the universe, as if these 5 boys are proof that your hands can hold and not only release. But the 6th child is still out there, always out there. Sometimes, when the boys are asleep in a heap like puppies, you step outside alone. You stand where the trees open and the sky shows through. You listen to the river in the distance, and you imagine him, not a baby anymore, a boy running somewhere under a different name, a boy with sunlight in his skin, a boy asking questions no one can answer. You try not to. You try to stay inside the life you have built, but the mind is disobedient in the dark. You're sitting one afternoon with Yudhishthira beside you, his small face serious as he tries to copy the careful script of an old hermit. He furrows his brow, tongue peeking out in concentration. Bhima barrels past, chasing something, maybe a butterfly, maybe only his own energy, nearly knocking over a basket of firewood. Arjuna follows more quietly, eyes lifted toward a bird on a branch, already measuring distance the way archers do without knowing they're doing it. And you, right then, feel it. A strange doubling, because Yudhishthira's steadiness reminds you of someone who once looked at you with calm golden eyes, because Bhima's strength makes you think of armor that was not worn but born, because Arjuna, when sunlight hits him just so, carries a brightness that tugs at an old wound. You blink hard, you press your palm to the cool earth, you breathe in the smell of leaf mold and smoke and crushed basil, and you remind yourself that these 5 are here. These 5 are yours to raise. These 5 are yours to protect. Yet even as you watch them, your kept sons, your living sons, you feel a shadow move at the edge of your heart. The shape of a 6th, a face you have not seen in years, a face you have never truly been allowed to know. And somewhere deep inside you, quieter than any mantra, the river keeps flowing. 20 years passed, not with trumpets, with the quiet scrape of days against stone. And then, on an ordinary afternoon, your past walked into an arena. It begins like any festival. Too many people, too much sun, and the steady, unstoppable smell of bodies packed together in heat. Hastinapura has dressed itself up, fresh whitewash on walls, bright cloth canopies stretched like sails, garlands of marigold draped over pillars until the whole place looks as if it's trying to pretend it has no shadows. In the distance, you hear conches, then drums, then the rising chatter of 1,000 throats, finding a single excitement. You sit in the royal box, higher than the crowd, where the breeze can reach you if it remembers you exist. Cool stone under your feet, a silk edge against your wrist, your fingers rest on the railing, and the metal is already warm from the sun. Below, the arena is a wide bowl of sand, flattened and combed, waiting for footprints, the way a riverbank waits for rain. This is a day for showing, for boasting with a polite face, for young men to prove they're not boys anymore, and you can feel it in the way the whole city leans forward. You're here because you must be, because the princes have been trained and training must be displayed. Drona stands down there like a straight spear planted in the earth, Brahmanas in neat rows, old warriors with heavy eyelids and heavier memories. And at the center, your sons, not all together, not in a bundle the way you remember them in the forest, but separated now into their own shapes. Yudhishthira's calm, Bhima's restless power, Arjuna's stillness that feels like a drawn bowstring, Nakula and Sahadeva, bright as twin blades in polished sheets. You watch them, and you try to let that be enough. You try to let the sound of the drums cover everything else. A boy runs past in the lower stands, nearly spilling a clay cup of buttermilk on someone important. Somebody shouts after him. The boy doesn't even slow down. It would be funny if your heart weren't already tight. You breathe in warm dust and sandalwood oil. You tell yourself you are simply a mother watching her children shine. You tell yourself you have done this before, watched, stayed quiet, swallowed what needed swallowing. Down in the arena, the performances begin. One prince rides in with a chariot so polished it throws sunlight in your eyes. Another leaps, wrestling, tossing a mace as if it's a toy he found on the floor. The crowd cheers in waves that roll up the stone seats, break against your box, and fall away. You see Duryodhana below too, always too pleased with himself, always sitting like the world owes him a throne, just for breathing. His brothers cluster around him like a flock of crows. Bhishma is there, white-haired, unmoving. Dhritarashtra sits close, his face turned toward sound, toward approval, toward whatever his son feeds him. Gandhari's veil is drawn, yet you can still feel her presence, an iron silence beside him. You're standing in the royal box when Arjuna steps forward. The air shifts, it always does. Even the birds seem to pause when he lifts his longbow. There's a target set high, small and difficult, something meant to make the onlookers gasp. Arjuna doesn't perform his effort. He doesn't show his strain. He simply becomes still. And then the arrow leaves his hand. A clean hiss, a soft thud. The target shivers. The crowd erupts as if they've been waiting all day just to exhale. For a moment, you let yourself feel pride without fear. For a moment, you almost forget the river. Almost. The next feats come quickly, one after the other, like sweets offered at a feast, until your mouth grows numb. More arrows, more cheers, more young men looking around, as if someone will crown them on the spot for standing upright. A Brahmana near you clears his throat loudly, the kind of sound that means he's bored but would rather die than admit it. Someone waves a peacock feather fan behind you, and the air smells briefly of jasmine and sweat. Then, an odd pause, a hitch in the rhythm, not planned, not announced. It happens first in the crowd, heads turning, a ripple of murmurs, a space opening in the lower walkway, as if an invisible hand is parting people. You lean forward before you even know you're moving. Your palm presses harder against the railing. And there he is, a young man walking into the arena as if he belongs there more than anyone. Not invited, not announced, no herald shouting his name. He moves with the relaxed certainty of someone who has never once asked permission for breath. The sun catches him and seems to cling. You see it first on his chest, golden armor, not strapped on, not tied. It sits on him like skin remembers it, like it grew there the day he was born. And at his ears, those earrings, bright, heavy, unmistakable. Kundalas, that flash with every step. Your mouth goes dry, the cheers dim, not because the crowd is quiet, but because your hearing suddenly narrows. Everything in you rushes toward one terrible point. That armor, those earrings, that face. He lifts his head slightly, and the light falls across his cheekbones, the way dawn spreads over water. It's the same kind of radiance, not pretty, not gentle, commanding, as if the sun once leaned close to a girl on a terrace and left a mark that time couldn't wash away. Your vision blurs, not with tears yet, but with shock. You grip the railing so hard, the metal bites your skin. 30 feet, that's all. 30 feet of hot sand and noise and rules. 30 feet between you and the basket you once pushed into the river. And you cannot move, you cannot speak, because the world you live in is made of names and fathers and status. And the wrong word in the wrong mouth can set everything on fire. He walks toward the center and makes it clear, without needing long speeches, why he has come. He challenges Arjuna, just like that. A stranger calling out the finest archer in the arena as if he's calling a friend to a game. The crowd reacts in that delighted way crowds do when they smell conflict. A few laugh, already enjoying the idea of a proud boy being humbled. Some jeer, some stare, caught by the shine of him, drawn like moths to a lamp. You watch Arjuna's face, the smallest tightening at his jaw. He doesn't fear the challenge, but he notices what everyone notices, that armor, those earrings, the way the stranger holds himself, the way his gaze doesn't drop. In the stands, someone says it aloud, one brief sharp label thrown like a pebble. Sutaputra, charioteer's son, that's what they decide he is, just from the way he arrived without invitation, without lineage spoken ahead of him. And the word lands. You feel it land, not on him, on you, because you know what the word is trying to do. Make him smaller. Give everyone permission to mock. Build a wall of birth between him and the princes trained in palaces. Your stomach turns as if you've swallowed hot ghee. The air around you smells suddenly of dust and old flowers left too long in the sun. Down below, the elders intervene, not with kindness, with procedure. Someone, Kripa, sharp-eyed and strict, demands that this stranger name his father, name his clan, claim his right. It isn't shouted like an insult. It's said as a gatekeeper says it, the way a city asks a traveler to state his business, calm, cold, deadly. The young man stands there, and for a moment, just a moment, you see something pass over him. Not fear, something like a tightness behind the eyes, like a door closing. Because what can he say? If he speaks the truth, it will tear the world. If he lies, it will stain him. If he stays silent, they will use the silence as a whip. Your heart thunders in your ribs. You're sitting above them all, dressed like a queen, surrounded by power. And you have never felt so helpless. Your hands ache from gripping the railing. You can feel the texture of the metal, rough with tiny imperfections. A bead of sweat slides down your spine under your sari. The crowd shifts, restless. They want a fight. They want spectacle. They want the clean pleasure of someone being put in his place. And then Duryodhana stands. Of course he does. He stands the way a man stands when he has decided he will buy something expensive just to prove he can. His eyes flick toward the stranger, and you see it, recognition of usefulness. If this young man can match Arjuna, then he can be used like a blade. And Duryodhana loves blades. He steps forward and makes his move. He doesn't argue the rules. He changes them. He announces, loud enough for all to hear, that if the problem is lineage, then he will provide status. He gives the stranger a kingdom, Anga, just like that, in the middle of an arena, as casually as someone might offer a seat. The court scrambles to keep up. Servants rush. A cloth is fetched. Water in a polished vessel. A quick, messy sort of consecration, like trying to perform a sacred rite while a marketplace shouts around you. You can smell the water as it splashes, clean, sharp, briefly cooling the air. A garland is thrown over the stranger's shoulders. A crown, or something close enough to be called one, is placed upon his head. The crowd roars, thrilled. People love generosity when it costs them nothing. And now the gatekeepers have less to say. Because he is a king, because Duryodhana has made him one, because that's what power does. It declares, and the world rearranges itself. The stranger, no, the king, accepts it with a stiff dignity. You see gratitude flicker, not soft gratitude, the kind that binds like rope. Your throat tightens so hard it hurts. You want to stand. You want to call his name, the name you never gave him, the name you never dared to whisper into the world. You want to run down the steps and push through the sand and press your forehead to his armor and tell him he was never meant to beg for permission. But your feet stay planted. Because you can already imagine the faces turning, the questions, the sudden hungry scandal, the way every woman's safety in this palace depends on what men decide is acceptable. You stay still. You do what you have always done. You become silence. Below, Bhima cannot resist. He never could. He taunts, not with wit, but with raw strength, like a gust of wind slamming into a door. He mocks the new king's birth. He points at his sudden crown, as if it's a cheap ornament. The crowd laughs, some of them, others hiss, sensing danger. Arjuna stays focused, his eyes on his opponent. But you see Bhima's words land. You see the new king's shoulders go tight. You see his hand flex near his longbow, as if he wants to answer with action rather than speech. You taste bitterness, sharp as neem, because it is your son being cornered, your firstborn, and it is another of your sons throwing stones. The arena becomes too bright. The sand below looks like a sheet of fire. Somewhere a bell rings, maybe for order, maybe for ceremony, maybe because someone thinks sound can control men's pride. A conch is blown again, long and mournful, and the note hangs in the air like a warning. For a heartbeat, it seems as if the contest will happen, as if the arrows will fly, as if the world will split right here under open sky in front of everyone. But the elders don't allow it. Not today. Not in this way. They send the young men back. They push the moment away with raised hands and stern faces and rules spoken like prayers. The crowd complains, then settles, then finds something else to cheer. Crowds are like that. They don't carry wounds for long. You do. The new king turns to leave. As he walks out, his gaze lifts for a fraction of a second. Not searching the crowd, not pleading, just lifting. And the sun catches his earrings again, and the flash slices straight through you. You feel it in your chest like a struck gong. He disappears into the passageway, swallowed by shadow and stone. And you remain, still in your box, still a queen, still the only person in this entire city who knows what just walked across that sand. Around you, people begin talking at once, excited, satisfied, already shaping the afternoon into a tale to retell at dinner. Someone laughs about how quickly a kingdom can be handed out. Someone praises Arjuna. Someone curses Duryodhana's boldness. The world continues. Your breath comes shallow. You loosen your grip on the railing, and your fingers sting as blood returns to them. The smell of marigolds has turned sour in the heat. A fly lands on the edge of a sweet and is waved away. You sit back slowly, as if any sudden movement will crack you open. Inside you, something has shifted. Not broken, not healed, shifted. Because the river you tried to forget has found its way into the palace. Because the child you released has returned as a man who can shake the whole court with a single step. Because now you know where he is, and knowing is its own kind of pain. When the tournament ends, you leave before the last cheers have faded. You walk through corridors that smell of lamp smoke and old stone. Servants bow. Voices greet you. You nod as if you've heard them. Your feet carry you, but your mind is still down there in the sand, staring at golden armor that was never meant to exist. Outside, the sun is lower. The light has softened, turning the palace walls the color of ripe wheat. A peacock calls from somewhere unseen, harsh and lonely, and in that slanting light, you feel it, clearer than any omen. The day will come when your sons stand facing your son, and you will have to do what you did at the riverbank. Hold your breath, hold your secret, and walk away with it alone into the dark. On the eve of the Great War, Kunti did something she had never done. She went to find her firstborn. The camps have spread across the land, like twin cities made of cloth and firelight, rows of tents, lines of tethered horses, piles of spears stacked with the neatness of men trying not to think, and everywhere the smell, smoke from cooking fires, oiled leather, damp earth where the river breathes at night. Even the stars look sharper, as if the sky is paying attention. You walk beside Kunti, and she doesn't take the wide paths where guards linger and gossip grows teeth. She chooses the edges, shadowed lanes between wagons, places where the light from a single lamp can't quite decide what it reveals. Her shawl is drawn close, not for the cold, for the feeling of being seen. Somewhere behind you, someone laughs too loudly near a pot of lentils, and the sound breaks off fast, like they remembered where they are. A soldier coughs, a conch shell moans from far away, low and long, and then the night swallows it. Kunti keeps walking. You can feel her heart in the pace of her steps, measured, steady, like she's pretending this is any other errand, like she's going to check on a sick child or bring oil for a lamp. But you know where she's going, to the river. The river is always there, even when kingdoms rise and fall around it. It doesn't care about banners. It doesn't care about claims. It keeps moving, dark and patient, carrying the moon in broken pieces. When you reach the bank, the air changes, cooler, wet. It smells of mud and crushed leaves, and that clean sharpness water has at night. The reeds whisper to each other, and insects hum as if the world is still allowed to be ordinary. Kunti stops where the sand turns soft underfoot. This is the moment. You're standing close enough to hear her breath, and it isn't the breath of a queen right now. It's the breath of a woman who once stood at a riverbank with a basket in her hands and the sun burning her skin. Across the water, a single figure sits where the current bends, not in a tent, not among companions, just there on a rock half warmed by the day's leftover heat, as if he's been placed by the river itself. Karna. Even in the dark, you know him by the way the moon finds him, that strange, natural brightness, gold not from ornaments, but from him. His armor seems to drink the starlight and give it back. His earrings catch a glint and toss it away. He looks like someone carved out of the sunrise and forgot to soften the edges. He's not praying, not exactly. He sits with his shoulders squared, quiet in a way that feels practiced, like he learned long ago that if you make no sound, the world can't tell you what it thinks you are. The river talks for him. Kunti takes another step, and sand shifts under her heel. Karna's head turns, fast. A warrior's movement, no wasted motion, no sleepy confusion. Even at rest, he's ready. You can almost hear the training in it, the years of being watched and measured and found wanting by men who thought lineage was the same thing as worth. He recognizes her. Of course he does. Everyone recognizes Kunti. She doesn't sit at first. She stands at the edge of the water where the river's breath touches her ankles, and for a long time, she only looks at him. At the face she saw across the arena, at the armor she once saw on a newborn skin, at the shape of his hands, strong, steady, capable of giving away anything and still holding pride like a blade. Karna's gaze stays on her, patient but guarded. He waits, as if she's come to deliver a message from kings, a queen's business, not this. You feel Kunti gather herself. It's a strange thing to watch, not courage exactly. More like a woman lifting a pot she's carried for decades and finally setting it down, only to realize her arms still ache from the weight. Her voice, when it comes, is low, barely above the river, and she tells him. She tells him what she has never told anyone in the open night air. She tells him that before marriage, before the palace, before the years and rules and duties, there was a girl on a terrace, and a mantra that felt like play. She tells him that the sun answered. She tells him that a child was born with armor and earrings, like a blessing that also looked like a curse. She tells him about the basket, about the river, about hands that let go. And then, like stepping off a cliff with your eyes open, she says it plainly, only one brief line, because anything longer might shatter her. I am your mother. The words hang there, not shouted, not performed, just placed between them, fragile as a lamp flame. For a heartbeat, Karna doesn't move at all. The river keeps going. A night bird calls, sharp and lonely. Somewhere far back in camp, a horse stamps and snorts, irritated that humans can't stop pacing. Then Karna rises, slowly, and you see the change in him, like a cloud crossing the moon. His face hardens first, not cruelty, but defense. A wall thrown up so quickly, you can almost hear the stones falling into place. His jaw tightens, his eyes go bright, and not with tears, with heat. You're close enough to feel it. How the air around him seems warmer. How his presence fills the bank the way fire fills a room. He doesn't rush to her. He doesn't bow. He doesn't soften. He looks at her as if he's been handed a jewel after being starved. And he can't decide if it's mercy or mockery. He demands proof without speaking like a child. He speaks like a man who has lived with the word sutta thrown at him like dust. He speaks like a man who has built himself out of insult and endurance. Kunti doesn't flinch. She reminds him of what only she could know, the details no court ever saw, the hidden night, the fear, the way the newborn light filled a small room. She speaks of the armor fused to skin, the earrings that were not placed by human hands. And as she speaks, you watch Karna's anger tremble, not vanish, tremble, because there's a grief underneath it, deep as the riverbed, the kind of grief that doesn't show itself until it has to, the kind that has nowhere to go, because where would you even put a lifetime of being unwanted? He turns his face slightly, as if looking at the water will make this easier to swallow. It doesn't. Kunti's shoulders sag, just a little, in the way of someone who has rehearsed this 1,000 times and still can't find a version that doesn't hurt. She doesn't reach for him. She doesn't try to touch his arm like a mother in a courtyard. She offers him something else instead, a way out. She tells him the war is coming like a storm. No one can turn aside now. She tells him his brothers, are on one side and he is on the other. She tells him that if he comes to them, he will not be treated as a guest or a tolerated ally. He will be first, eldest, a prince, not by charity, but by birth, a king if he wants it. And you can hear the desperation in it, even though she keeps her voice steady. She's not bargaining for land. She's bargaining for a heartbeat, for a correction, for the river to flow backward just once. The night holds its breath with you. Karna listens without interrupting. When she speaks of thrones and honor and the place that should have been his mouth twists. Not quite a smile, not quite a grimace. It's almost tired, as if someone has finally arrived at his door offering a feast after he's already learned how to live on dry grain. Useful, maybe, tempting even, but late. He tells her, in the simplest way, that he cannot. Not because he doubts her, not because he doesn't feel the pull of it, but because there is a man who gave him a name when the world wanted him nameless. Duryodhana. Karna doesn't defend Duryodhana's choices. He doesn't dress it up as righteousness. He simply lays down his truth like a weapon set carefully on the ground. When everyone laughed, Duryodhana did not. When everyone demanded lineage, Duryodhana gave him a crown. When the world tried to shove him back into the dust, Duryodhana pulled him forward. And Karna, for all his heat and brilliance, is bound by gratitude, like a vow carved into bone. You can feel Kunti's hope flicker, not die, flicker. The river moves on, indifferent, and the reeds sway. A thin breeze carries the scent of campfires from the plain, flatbread, ghee, smoke. It smells almost comforting, and that only makes it worse, because comfort does not belong here. Kunti's hands clench in her shawl, the fabric bunching under her fingers. Rough weave, familiar, grounding, like holding on to something real when the world is turning mythic and terrible. She tries again, softer now, and you hear the mother in it more than the queen. She speaks of Kunti's own body carrying him, of the long silence, of the way she watched him in the arena and had to swallow her own voice. She speaks of the 5 brothers who don't know they have another. She speaks of how the coming war will force hands that should never have been forced. Karna's eyes narrow, and in the moonlight you see it, a crack in the wall, a place where pain shines through. He asks her, not gently, why now? Why not when he was a boy, with nothing but a charioteer's roof and the taste of other people's scorn in his mouth? Why not when he stood in the arena and was turned into a joke because of the father who raised him? Why not before promises were made and loyalties forged? Kunti has no answer that saves her, only the truth, which has never been kind, fear, honor, the tight, suffocating rules of palaces, and the simple human weakness of wanting to survive. You're standing there with her, and you can feel how small she looks beside him, even though she's a queen, not small in dignity, small in the way anyone looks when they face the consequences of a choice made long ago with trembling hands. Karna's gaze drops, just for a moment, to the water at her feet. And then he does something unexpected. He steadies his voice. He offers her not forgiveness, not surrender, something else, a boundary, a promise made like a blade laid across a palm. He tells her that he will not raise his hand against 4 of her sons, Yudhishthira, Bhima, Nakula, Sahadeva. He will let them be, even in the roar and dust and confusion of war. But for Arjuna, he makes no softness. For Arjuna, he holds on to the old fire, the tournament challenge, the rivalry sharpened by years, the feeling of being measured against the favorite of teachers and kings. He tells her it will come down to that, only that. Arjuna or Karna, one will fall, the other will walk away. And then he says it, calmly, almost like a man discussing the weather. Because sometimes the worst things are easier to bear when spoken plain. When the war ends, she will still have 5 sons. Not 6, not 4, 5. You feel Kunti sway, as if the earth shifted under her feet. It's a comfort shaped like a knife, a mother's arithmetic. Kunti's throat tightens. She doesn't plead anymore. The night has taken all pleading and turned it into mist. She stands very still, letting the words settle into her bones, where they will live from now on. For a moment, neither of them speaks. The river keeps moving, carrying moonlight and old secrets downstream. Somewhere, a temple bell rings faintly, maybe from a village beyond the camps, stubbornly continuing its rituals like the gods might still be listening the way they did before men gathered in armor. You look at Karna and you can see the boy he was, layered beneath the warrior, like a painting done over and over, each new image unable to fully erase the first. You look at Kunti and you can see the girl she was, standing on a terrace with the sun rising, whispering a mantra she didn't understand. Two lives shaped by one dawn. Kunti finally nods, not because she accepts it, because she has no other shape to take. She turns away from him, and the movement is slow, careful, like turning away from a fire you still feel on your skin. You walk with her as she leaves the bank. The sand gives way under your feet, soft and shifting, unwilling to hold any footprint for long. The night air feels cooler now, and you can smell jasmine somewhere, someone's offering, someone's prayer, trying to sweeten the edge of what's coming. Behind you, Karna remains by the river, a lone brightness in the dark. He does not follow. He does not call her back. He stands with the current at his side, as if he has chosen to let the river witness everything he cannot say. And Kunti keeps walking toward the camps, toward her 5 sons, toward the morning that will ask for the price of every secret. Her shawl trails behind her like a shadow, and the sound of the river fades, and the world becomes tents and lamps and guarded paths again. But inside her, the river is louder than ever, because she has spoken the truth at last. And it has changed nothing, only the way the night feels as it closes around her. The river keeps moving even when people don't. It slides past reeds and sandbars, past lamps set afloat with trembling flames, past old footprints that are already softening into nothing. And after all of that, after the basket and the silence and the war, what were the ancient storytellers trying to press into your palm? The way a mother presses a talisman into her child's hand. Not a rule, not a tidy answer, a feeling you can carry. Because Kunti's life isn't built like a straight road. It's built like a riverbank after rain, cut away in places, reshaped overnight, stubbornly holding in others. You go all the way back to the beginning. A girl in a palace that isn't quite hers, adopted into comfort, still restless, still watchful. And then Durvasa arrives, all appetite and test and temper, the kind of guest who makes servants dream of becoming birds. For a year, Kunti learns something most people learn too late. Power doesn't always arrive with a drum roll. Sometimes it arrives like an impossible house guest, and you survive it one meal, one bathwater pot, one careful breath at a time. And when the sage finally drops that mantra into her hands, it's given like a reward. But it isn't a reward, it's a spark. That lesson is simple and sharp. Untested power is not a toy. A boon can be a blade, even when it looks like a flower. Then comes the terrace, dawn air, cool for a moment before the heat returns. A girl looking at the sun like it's a friend she can tease. And the sun answers. You can almost feel it again. The way the light thickens, the way the world suddenly has weight. Divinity steps close, and the distance between curious and changed forever becomes one breath. That's another lesson the old ones wanted you to keep. Some doors don't swing gently. You open them and the wind takes the whole house. Kunti doesn't call Surya because she is wicked. She calls because she is young. Because she's been handed something and nobody warned her what it really costs. And when consequence arrives, it doesn't ask if she meant it. It only arrives. Then the hardest part. 9 months of hiding, cloth wrapped a certain way, steps taken slowly, a trusted maid with frightened eyes. And finally, that private room, the hour when everything becomes real, when a baby's first sound fills the silence like a bell struck in a cave. Karna is born shining, armored, adorned, marked as someone fate will not leave alone. And Kunti makes a choice that is almost unbearable to speak aloud. Not because she doesn't love him, because she does. Because she knows exactly what the world does to girls who break its rules, even when those rules are cruel. This is where Dharma starts to feel like a knot instead of a path. People like to say Dharma is duty, as if duty is always clean. But Kunti's duty splits in her hands. Duty to her own survival. Duty to a child who did nothing wrong. Duty to a future she can't yet see. And she chooses the one option that keeps her alive. Not the best option, the survivable one. If you've ever held your breath around a secret, you understand this part in your bones. You can almost feel the river mud under your feet, the basket's rough weave against your palms, the moment of release, and then the years. A life built on silence, brick by brick. A marriage, a palace, then the forest, where a curse turns intimacy into danger. And the bitter irony, the same mantra that once shattered her girlhood is now asked for again, calmly, almost politely, as if the past is a small thing. So she uses it. She becomes mother again and again, not in hiding now, but in ritual and necessity. 5 sons at her side. 1 son somewhere else in the world, growing up under a different roof, called by a different name. This is where karma comes in, not as a punishment, not as a prize, but as a ripple that doesn't stop. Karma is what happens when one choice touches another life, and that life touches another, and soon an entire shoreline is changing shape. Kunti's secret doesn't stay in her throat. It moves through time. It becomes alliances and rivalries, becomes pride and humiliation, becomes a friendship between Karna and Duryodhana that hardens like fired clay. And then you remember the tournament, the heat of the arena, the dust hanging in the air, conchis, drums, the rustle of silk in the royal seats, and the moment Kunti sees him, not a baby anymore. A young man with the sun on his skin, with armor that looks like it grew with him, with earrings that catch the light and throw it back. Recognition hits her like cold water, and she says nothing. Not because she doesn't know, because she knows too well. That silence is its own kind of action. It feels passive, but it builds a world. It builds distance. It builds a life where a son can stand 30 feet away and still be unreachable. And then the night visit. So late in the journey, it almost feels like the last candle in a long corridor. Kunti finally walks to the river and puts the truth down between them. She offers him everything she can offer: lineage, belonging, even the shape of a kingdom. And Karna refuses. Not because he is stone, because he has his own dharma now. Gratitude has become his spine. Loyalty has become his shelter. Duryodhana once gave him a seat when the world tried to keep him standing outside. And Karna will not abandon that, even for the mother he dreamed of without knowing her name. This is one of the deepest truths in the whole journey. Dharma can clash. 2 duties can be real at the same time. A mother's duty to protect her children. A son's duty to honor the hand that lifted him. A queen's duty to keep a kingdom steady. A woman's duty to survive in a world that punishes her for surviving. Kunti doesn't get a clean victory. She gets a night by the river, a confession spoken too late to change the shape of what has already formed. And still, it matters, because love isn't only what you do loudly. Love can be what you carry quietly for decades until it bends your shoulders. Love can be the choice to let a child live, even if it means living without you. Love can be the restraint of not tearing apart the sons you raised just to ease your own guilt. When Kunti finally speaks, the truth doesn't arrive like a magic medicine. It arrives like sunrise, beautiful, unstoppable, and indifferent to what it reveals. It doesn't undo the years. It doesn't rewind the river. It simply lights everything up so you can see it clearly, once, before the day becomes busy again. So the resolution that settles over Kunti's story is not a neat ending. It's a kind of acceptance. Some choices don't have good options. They have consequences, and then more consequences, branching like roots under the soil. And a person does what they can with the life still in front of them. If you take one thing with you from Kunti, let it be this softness. The heart can be sincere and still be trapped. A person can be trying their best and still leave wounds. A secret can be kept to survive and still grow into a storm that reaches the next generation. The river remembers, not with anger, with motion. And in that steady motion, there's a strange mercy. Because even when silence has built something heavy, even when truth arrives late, life still moves. Night still cools the air. Water still carries lamps downstream. And somewhere in that flowing dark, the burden finally becomes something you don't have to grip so tightly. Something you can set down, just for a while, on the bank, and breathe. And Kunti, after the war, after the grief, after everything, the palace feels too large for the number of footsteps left inside it. The corridors that once rang with bangles and laughter are quiet now. Only the soft scrape of sandals. Only the hush of servants who don't know where to look. Even the lamps seem tired. Their little flames lean sideways in the drafts as if they'd rather be out. You can smell it. Old stone, cooling ash from distant pyres, and that sharp bite of mustard oil rubbed into aching knees. Kunti doesn't make a ceremony of leaving. She's never needed an audience for the hardest parts. One morning, when the sky is the pale color of watered milk, she ties her hair back with steady fingers. She wraps herself in the plain cloth that doesn't glitter, doesn't cling, doesn't ask for attention. Not a queen's drape now. Something softer, something that could pass through trees without snagging. Outside the gates, a small group waits. The blind king is there, his face turned slightly upward, like he's listening for a familiar bird. Gandhari stands beside him, her cloth still covering her eyes, her hands folded as if they're holding together the last threads of a world. A few attendants hover, unsure whether this is a journey or a morning. And you're there too, close enough to hear the morning breeze move through the neem leaves like a slow exhale. They set out. No chariots, no drums, no conchis, just walking. At first, the road is wide and obedient, packed hard by years of royal travel. Then it narrows. The dust grows looser. It shifts underfoot and clings to the hem of Kunti's cloth as if it wants to come with her. The sun climbs, warm but not cruel. It lays a gentle hand on everyone's shoulders. And there's a strange tenderness in the way Kunti guides them. Not like a servant, not like a ruler, like a woman who has carried too much for too long, finally allowed to carry only what she can hold in her arms. When the blind king's step falters on a root, someone moves to help, and Kunti is already there. When Gandhari's bangles catch on a branch, Kunti frees them without a word, quick and careful. Even the forest seems to notice. The birds keep their songs low, as if they understand this procession isn't for spectacle. You can feel the change as the city drops away behind you. The air turns greener. It smells of crushed leaves, damp earth, and a faint sweetness from wild jasmine hiding somewhere deeper in the shade. In the distance, water speaks, never loud, never silent, always there, always moving. Days pass in the simple rhythm of it. Wake, wash, walk, rest. Food becomes whatever can be gathered, whatever can be offered by hermits with kind eyes and smoke-stained hands. A little rice, a handful of fruit, warm water that tastes faintly of clay from the pot. No one asks Kunti to explain herself. No one asks her to be strong. In the forest, strength looks different. It looks like sitting down when your body tells you to. It looks like breathing through the ache. It looks like silence that isn't forced on you, silence you choose. And when night comes, you sit near a small fire. The flames crackle softly, and the smell of burning wood is clean and sweet compared to palace incense. Above, the stars are sharper than any jewel. They don't flatter, they just shine. Sometimes, the old king speaks into the darkness, saying a name that no longer answers. Sometimes, Gandhari's covered face tilts toward the sound of the river, as if she's trying to see it with her ears. And Kunti sits with her hands in her lap, watching the sparks rise and vanish. You watch her too. This woman who once stood on a riverbank with a basket in her hands. This woman who once swallowed a scream so it wouldn't echo through a palace. Now she lets the night make whatever sound it wants. The forest accepts them. It doesn't praise them. It doesn't accuse them. It gives them shade. It gives them thorny paths. It gives them the steady company of wind in the branches. It gives them mornings that smell like wet bark after a brief rain. It gives them evenings where the world cools down, one breath at a time. And then, one night, the wind comes restless. You hear it first as a hiss through dry grass, then as a deeper rush, like the forest is turning over in its sleep. The fire they've built flares higher than it should. Someone reaches for water. Someone stands too quickly. Kunti doesn't panic. She looks toward the river's direction, as if listening for an old friend. If any words leave her mouth, they're small enough to be carried off immediately, the way a single seed is carried away on a breeze. The only clear thing is her face in the firelight, calm, almost gentle, like someone finally setting down a weight. And after that, they don't return. No footsteps come back to the city road. No messenger arrives with careful phrases. Only seasons shift as seasons do. Somewhere, a river continues to run over stones, smoothing them patiently, making them round. Somewhere, a basket could still be caught in reeds, could still bump softly against a bank and be found by hands that weren't looking for miracles. Somewhere, a mother stands very still in her own life, holding back words that feel too heavy to release. And if you listen closely, closer than thought, closer than worry, you can hear water moving through the dark, not hurrying, not stopping, just going, carrying what it carries, leaving what it leaves behind, cool, steady, endless. The river still flows.